my question for you, right off the rip, is we've done one season thus far. Give me your take. Give me a recap on your one season. What do you think? Talk to me. What's going on?
First season was definitely different, intriguing. Touched on a lot of conversations and topics I haven't thought about in a long time. So that's definitely was good to kind of go back over some of those things and revisit those moments and situations.
What
Talk about them.
what when you sit back and we this is something that I know is truly new to me. I think it new to most for the space that we're in, this podcast, internet space, and this father and son opportunity. I never had this conversation with my father. You know what I'm saying? And so to just go over that first season, how was that to you? Just, from a therapeutic standpoint, did you gain anything from this whole process?
Um, yeah, definitely good to see from your point of view, to listen. Sometimes when you going through, you can't see all the things around us happening or the things that you're blind to. So to see from your point of view definitely was a good insight, and just excited to see where it goes.
Okay. Well, my purpose, my goal on this show, and I'm gonna throw this back to you in a minute, is when I first thought about this whole process, when we first started discussing this whole process, the goal was not just to make a podcast. Everybody's making podcasts out there. There's podcasts about fishing, sports, and this I didn't want this to be a sports podcast, even though the basis of this is sports related. I really wanted this to be a educational, entertainment, and an informative podcast where I really want the audience to really engage in what we're doing. Because there are a lot of kids out there that's going through exactly what you went through. There are a lot of parents that's going through what I went through. And I really want to engage them in not only when you view these YouTube, Spotify, and Podgo, I really want you guys to embrace this opportunity and then add comments. Please add comments to the YouTube and the Spotify. And I think we would agree, we both would agree that we will try to answer some of those questions to the podcast.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think the whole part of this situation, what I enjoy about the podcast is being able to tell my story and hopefully inspire somebody else to tell their story, because we all a part of history. So that's what we're trying to tell, our history.
So that being said, I would like for those of you, all of you who are embracing this whole journey that we're going through, and again, I know personally, and I think I can speak for you also, is we're being open, we're being honest, and we're being naked into our life and through some of the experiences that we went through. So I've read some comments thus far that's asking different questions about experiences and what happened during this period and this happened this period. So I want to encourage those of you who have questions or have suggestions during those comments. Please send those comments in, and we're going to respond to them and try to answer those open and honestly as best as we can. Because again, there are a lot of kids out there, a lot of parents that's out there that's going through this whole process, especially what you went through, that this is new to them. And we've been through that experience right there. If you have any questions or any concerns, throw it out there in the comments and we'll try to respond to them as soon as we can on the next podcast, whatever the case may be. But I want this to be, I know we're not live, but I want this to be interactive so we can respond to you guys as soon as possible and try to give you some insights on what our experience is. And because we have a lot of goddamn experiences.
Or hit him up on Ego versus Ego, because he's very quick to respond. So if you comment on the podcast, he will definitely get back to you in a timely manner.
That being said, I think during the last season, season one, we wrapped off on season one basically discussing the that whole experience with women. I think we touched on that very, very deeply. Then we also started to interact with that first first year and a half within St. John's Academy, and that first offer that we had. And I think I want to really go into more of that St. John's experience, St. John's Catholic Prep, because again, that I think that was very pivotal coming from Walkersville Middle School, and not only coming from Walkersville Middle School, it was also coming from a public school, which would be Walkersville Public School, and you're transgressing into a private Catholic school. How was that whole transfer to you?
When I think about the transition from Walkersville to St. John's, the biggest thing was like, for instance, in Walkersville is more your basic studies, your basic math, science, history. When you go into a St. John's, you may have classes like theology, where they talk about religion or things like that. Like that, you may have a mass or something like that. You're required to wear uniforms. The people here are spending an excess amount of dollars to be at this school, so it's just a different level of comfort, I guess I would say, a different level of just a different level of really everything we think about, what we put into the students and stuff like that. So it was different for me because in public school you had more freedom, and in private school it was more you was kind of controlled essentially. And then we wasn't just like the average private school because it's St. John's. Like I said, a lot of people, if you haven't been there, you hear the name and you would be like, this is a big fancy school. But by the time we was there, we was having a school outside of a mansion with a couple trailers in the back. So that was a lot different too.
So when you start talking about the Walkersville, and you say you start and now you talking about public versus private, and I know my experience when I came from the Bahamas. I went from international into American public, and that whole experience I know from my vantage point. So I really wanted to start getting to understand exactly what were you going through personally from a you just came from winning a championship with the Tigers. Is it Tigers?
What were we? Lions.
The
Walkersville's
Lions.
Lions.
Walkersville
Yeah.
Lions. You just come from a Walkersville Lions. You're winning a championship at that middle school era. Now you're going into St. John's. Now you're shifting your paradigm. So now you're going from public into private. So a lot of all of your friends, not saying most, all of your friends were on that public school level or genre, whatever the case may be. Now you transition. A lot of them, there's only one or two transcended with you to that private level. How was that?
It was different. Like you said, a lot of my friends, they went to public school, so a lot of them went to Walkersville High School. Going to St. John's and having a different schedule, um, having to travel further away to go to school and things of that nature, you kind of lose contact with a lot of people. So it was definitely was a shift of what I was doing. And then at that time, getting heavily involved into sports, right after school, you either got practice or something like that. So by the time you get home, what I mean, you got enough time to eat and go to sleep and repeat the same cycle again.
So how was that transition with your traditional friends? I know you and I discussed this the other day when we talked about some of your friends, the Mitches of the world, the little short little midget, Troys of the world,
Crazy.
and how was that transition in the sense that now that you are going to a private school, your friends that you currently have are all on the public level. Was there any how was that for you? How was that transition from you?
I think what you not taking into consideration is that like it wasn't like I grew up in Walkersville, so like all these friends was kind of new. I'm just developing these relationships, so we talking about from 8th grade to 9th grade. That's a year span, you know what I mean? So it's like you literally living in the moment. So I'm not really thinking about who I'm connected or who I'm not connected with. It's just like, all right, I go to school here now. Like, okay, I'm gonna try to kick it with you, but if I ain't got time, I just ain't got time. We can't make it happen. We can't make it happen. Or if we can make it happen, we make it happen. You see what I'm saying? I think the biggest thing was just like my mind was where my feet were at. And so at St. John's, I was at St. John's. I wasn't thinking about who was doing what or how they felt about me making that decision. It's like, shit, I made the decision to come up to Walkersville and went to Walkersville, right?
Mhm.
And we made another decision. So
So it's been constant. So now let me throw this back at you. So now you left Mims.
mhm.
So you went to middle elementary school at Mims. You went through from leaving Mims with your most of your family and friends, that whole knit. Now you in Walkersville, you in Maryland. From a personal standpoint, I want to try to go into more of the psyche. Now you transition because, like, me personally, I know I have some friends down in Miami, and when you start talking about Miami, I have some friends that never left the city of Miami. When I say city of Miami, they have never left even to go to Broward County. They've stayed their whole entire life in the city of Miami. How was that from your standpoint, transitioning from Mims to Walkersville? Now you're transitioning again to Maryland. Now, in each one of those transitions, you have garnered friendships, relationships. How was that for you?
I think, to be honest, I was so conditioned in the sense, like you said, I moved from Mims to Deltona, Deltona to Walkersville, Walkersville to St. John's, St. John's to Hargrave, Hargrave to LSU, and so on. So after a while, you kind of get used to having to pick up and leave. You know what I mean? So you enjoy the moments you have with people, but you also understand that there's another level, another step that you have to go, or a place that you have to go and do something else. So for me, I was blessed enough to be a prisoner of the moment. So wherever I was at, like if I was at when I went to St. John's, I was fully committed to St. John's, and really wasn't too focused on the outside world, what they thought or how they felt about my decisions or things at the time.
At no point did you ever look back on or ever had a situation where you thought about how they viewed you or how they reacted to you, how they related to you, the bitches of the world or the Jonathans of the world or the Pumpkins of the world, on how they treated you, or how was that experience? Because again, when I say this is, I'm not only looking at from your standpoint, I'm also looking at others who are about to embrace in your journey, because there are a lot of kids that are going to get ready to go into your journey, and those who are already in your journey. How do they view these things, or was it just something that just here and now?
I think that's so hard of a landscape of a question when you ask because it's like each person. I think a lot of people what they show is sometimes what they're going through essentially, right? So they could be upset at me or mad at me, but it's really where their feet are in the situation that they are in. And so you have to understand that part of the situation too when you ask that type of question. But like for me, it was like maybe I didn't listen to the noise. You know what I mean? Maybe I wasn't paying attention to the noise. You got to think in high school, we spent so much time working out, training, doing these different things of different unique things. We at the Naifs of the world. We in Baltimore. We're going to a choice. I'm constantly moving, so really my mind didn't have time to process what the next man felt and that the next man was going through. And to be honest, I think that's a superpower. To be honest, because if you spend so much time focused on the next man, how can you accomplish what you're trying to accomplish?
So basically, so what you were able sounds like what you were able to do was being able to compartmentalize the different changes of events.
I just think they happen so often. It's just like you get used to moving and having to make new friends, having to get accustomed to a new environment, having to adjust, really, right? So it's like if you spend so much time like focus on adjusting for right now, it's kind of hard to sit and look at the past at the same time. So it's like my mind was always, okay, what I got to do right now to fit in or to adjust or to get what I'm trying to do in this situation.
I can tell you right now, when we had the opportunity, and again, folks, what we're discussing is, and I really, really want to get really deep into, this is not just us telling a story about our past, but I really want to shed light into folks that's coming in and getting ready to go through, because a lot of folks, because whether we realize it or not, history tend to repeat itself. This is not a this same game that's been played over and over and over again consistently. The goal of this whole process is to hopefully help individuals who are just getting ready to go into this whole process and hopefully give them some kind of light or some kind of landscape on what to expect and how to pivot or how to adjust. So when I say this, in a sense that what are we doing far as to educate those who's coming behind you? Because there are a lot coming behind you that's going to go through this whole process. What would you have to say to those who are going coming behind you that's going to have to make these different adjustments? Because a lot of kids, I know a lot of kids down in DC were going from public schools and they go into like the Matha or a what's the other program that's out there?
Good counsel.
Good Counsel, St. Francis.
St. Francis, yeah.
When they're being in a public school their entire career life, and now all of a sudden they got an opportunity to go to a private school, that adjustment, how is that?
I mean, it's hard. It's a culture shock at first, I think, is the biggest thing. Like, you go from being able to have the freedom to wear what you want to wear to essentially not do what you want to do, but you have more freedom to operate in your own skin. And in private schools, like, from where I went to, was uniform basis, different things that you have to deal with. So that's like the hardest part of just getting accustomed. Smaller size classes, more personal relationship with teachers, dean of students, and things of that nature. But I think the biggest thing I could tell anybody just in these moments, whether it's private school or public school, like, is not to focus on what you don't have, more to cherish what you do have. So I done seen people make it from public school. I done seen people make it from private school. And I think the biggest thing is like where your mind is committed to. If I'm focused on what what I have in front of me, then I can treat it like gold. But if I'm constantly focused on what I don't have, then I'm gonna treat what I got in front of me like shit. And that's the thing a lot of people do.
Well, when we talked about this, so my thing is when we start talking about peer pressures, there are a lot of now. The fortunate thing about you was you left Maryland. I mean, left Mims to come to Maryland, so you didn't have a lot of that peer pressure. Because there are a lot of kids that are right within the inner city or within the city, the hood, whatever the case may be, and they have to transfer into a private school, but yet every night they come back to the public persona. What's your thought process on them navigating that? Because there's a huge separation.
Yeah, definitely.
Now, there you had the benefit of uplifting your entire life and coming to Maryland. They don't have that. They go back to the hood every night or every day, whatever the case may be. What type of pressures are there on those you think on them?
There's definitely a lot of pressure, and because you seeing the struggle right in front of your face. I was blessed enough to move to Maryland where I was able to escape the pressures of the day-to-day situation and able to just focus on school and ball and growing myself, essentially. A lot of people don't have that luxury. So it's like the hardest thing in those situations is to, even though things may look bad right now, to give your future a chance. And when I say give your future a chance, I understand that decisions that you make today can lead to your success tomorrow or your failure tomorrow.
And I know some of the pressures that you went through. Um, we unfortunately we left Jeremy. I know that whole situation still bothers me to today. That we, because I can remember when I moved to Maryland. Not only Maryland. When I moved to Alabama, when I used to bring you and Jeremy up, come to Maryland, and what's weird about it is I can recall when Jeremy was getting ready to go to the league. He was training. He was living in Fort Lauderdale with me, and he and I was having a conversation one night. We were just sitting there, just down in Pompano, and we were just having just a conversation, a weird conversation. Him and I just sitting there talking shit, and he was like, the best memory I had in life. I said, what was that? He said, I looked every summer to come into Maryland. I'm like, what? He said, yeah. He said, coming to Maryland I used to look forward to coming to Maryland every summer. That shit really blew my whole mind right there.
It's different, especially coming from where we're coming from. You got to think in Maryland, we going to see the Statue of Liberty. You taking us to New York to see the Statue of Liberty. Then we seen the Twin Towers. We going to baseball games and stuff like that. And the South, we're just not exposed to a lot of that stuff, or we're not comfortable exposing ourselves to that type of stuff, I guess, you know what I mean, at first. So it was like eye-opener for us to just do those type of things. Like, we don't got no Statue of Liberty in Florida, you know what I mean, or nothing like that to go look at that's eye-opening or something that pops the scene. So it was just different for us. But shout out to my guy Jeremy, man.
Yeah, hey, trust me. I love Jeremy right there. So my whole thought process was, so those kids that's going through that whole experience, they're leaving the public arena, going into the private arena, and then they have to go back home every night, back to the public arena. That has to be one of the most difficult things, because they have all of their base, their friends are still in that public arena. So now you're coming home every night to that public arena. You had the benefit of not only coming back to that private arena, you stayed in burbs, for lack of a better term.
Dearborn.
It's
just so hard because we didn't have to experience that, right? So I'm talking from a point of view I didn't have to experience it. But the biggest thing I could say is just that even though you're in that situation, you just have to cherish what you do have in front of you. You have the opportunity to go to a private school, to advance your education, to further your learning, to get a college degree or something like that. You got to run with it and understand that this is the thing that can help pull you out of that situation, more so than letting that situation overtake the thing that you're trying to get out of it.
I know we talked about it. I think we had the conversation earlier about this, where you look at life in two prisms. There's the first prism where you can look at life as a 100-yard dash. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And so, in my perspective, when you're from the hood, you're from this inner city, most of our viewpoint on life is from a 100-yard dash. You just try to get it and try to get it right there. So you live in, I think you mentioned it pretty much, I think on a few occasions before, is you living for today.
Yeah. You're not thinking about tomorrow at that point.
Now, when you are in the private sector, you're in the burbs, you're looking at more of the marathon. Mm-hmm. There is tomorrow, how do we position ourselves? Can you go more in detail, especially when you're coming from Walkersville, which is pretty much living for today, that 100-yard dash, and going into St. John's, and now you're working around kids who are more set or more pace for that marathon run.
Yeah, I think the biggest difference that I noticed was like kids were preparing for college. Kids had the expectation of going to college, you know. A lot of times in high school, a lot of people don't know what their next steps are going to be, you know what I mean? At St. John's, you kind of seen a wave of people leaving St. John's and going to, whether it's a Mount St. Mary's, whether it's a Maryland, whether it's a Townsend, whether it's Navy or something like that. You've seen just all different people kind of gearing themselves up for what's next. So it kind of put those thoughts into your head because the conversations are more advanced compared to conversations about what we eating today or shit, what you doing for the summer, you know what I mean?
It was that big a difference in conversations?
Yeah.
My question for you is, how was that? Now, you still have your core friends. You had the Mitches of the world. You had the Troys of the world. Now you having the James. You have the Orlandos. You have the what's his name? The kid with all the money.
Who is that?
The Brennans of the world. The Petros of the world. How was that dynamic?
It was different, but I was able to adapt. You know what I mean? I feel like the conversation gave me something to look forward to and to think outside of my natural thinking ability, I guess. You know what I mean? Like we talk about like a Troy King, you talk about Kevin Brennan or Darnell Wiley. These guys' parents was able to sustain and be able to pay for them to go to private school. So you start to pique interest in what were they able to do or accomplish to get to this point. You know what I mean? You start to look at the bigger grand scheme of things, of their life and things of that nature. So it just kind of forces you to kind of think outside the box. Like, how can he get this? Like when I first went to Troy's house, Troy got a basketball court inside his house.
In the house?
In the house. You know what I mean? That's how he living. So obviously the first thing coming around, well, what did your daddy do that you can do this?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
So now, how do you compare that to Mims? Can you compare that whole experience? I want
There's no comparison though. Like, there's not a comparison.
Zero?
mean, I don't even know why we're trying to compare the situation, to be honest. Yeah, and I'm not saying people don't have money in Florida or nothing like that, but it's just like the access of stuff that I had to at the time. It wasn't in that level like when I went to Maryland, just seeing different people at private schools and what they had to offer.
So that when you start looking at some of the friends that you grew up with in MIMS, not saying that everybody in MIMS did not succeed or whatever the case may be on your level is, have you ever sat back and said, what if I didn't go to Maryland? What if I didn't have this experience? Did you ever do a compare contrast? Or what if?
Nah, like I said, I lived in the moment, so I wasn't really thinking about what I did or didn't have. I was just appreciating what was presented to me, essentially. So the same way I look at how I was able to appreciate Maryland, I think somehow if I was in MIMS, I'd think I'd have had the same type of appreciation or God-given people brought to you to help push away, I think. I think what God got for you, God got for you.
I would tend to agree with that to a certain extent, but I would always tend to try to lean on, I think something that you said on prior conversations was exposure.
Absolutely. Exposes everything. But I think I was, and this is like, I guess how can I say this? The best way I compare it to is like a situation like a good friend of mine, Mikey Smith. Mikey Smith grew up in East Mims. He went to high school in East Mims, and he was able to go to VMI. Went to the military, spent time overseas, came back, started his own company. There's somebody that was in poverty, never got a chance to leave poverty, but still was able to make it out. So exposure can come in different forms. It don't just have to come from me going to private school more so that you get just exposed to a new world, a new sniff or something, or somebody putting energy inside of you saying that you can be more than what you see.
But how many of us in that inner city life have the opportunity to be exposed?
It's not that many. You have more people that's not exposed than exposed for sure.
Correct.
You have more people that get stuck than not stuck.
How do we, I guess expressively probably best way to look at it is that whole opportunity sense. Because everybody don't have that opportunity. How do we get kids? How do we get parents to try to give them their kids or that opportunity for exposure? Because that's the key. The key is exposure. If you put it in front of them, if you allow them to have access or to visualize this whole opportunity, then I feel that things tend to. It's like when you pick up a book and you start reading, it starts to expand your mind. If you don't have that opportunity, then you're still living out like little Ricky from Boys in the Hood. Would you agree or disagree?
I agree to a certain extent. I think you have a great point where you say like if you're not exposed to stuff, then what can happen? The hardest thing I think to answer, because it's like a cliche answer, right? How can you solve that problem? The people that was able to be able to see exposure, to get exposure, have to go back to the people that didn't have exposure and give them a taste of exposure. And hopefully that taste can develop a curiosity inside of their mouth that they want to expose something, to see something else, experience something else. But it's hard because then that takes for the people that done seen has to come back to get the unseen people. And that's where the problem lies at.
Next question I have for you would be, would you then agree that it is important that we all have an opportunity for exposure?
Yes, 1,000%.
Because right now, I'm going to tell you right now, in MIMS, you don't have exposure.
No.
I think you discussed this many times in the South that you pretty much live in a segregated society. In Miami, there's limited opportunity for exposure. And you can talk about Georgia, Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana. Shit, you lived in Louisiana. You and I talked about Louisiana.
Louisiana different for sure.
Please, speak to me. Now you had a little exposure to Louisiana. Yeah. How's Louisiana different?
It's easier to get caught in a trap, I think, is the biggest thing I can express. Like
when you say caught in a trap, explain that to me.
Whether it's getting in trouble early, not taking stuff seriously enough, or not, because Louisiana's like more charter schools and stuff like that. So their public schools don't really get too much money. If you notice, there's more private school-based money. So if you don't get those opportunities early, or you get in trouble early, you kind of labeled. kind of have this aura, or this, not this aura, but something over your head, like a cloud, essentially. And most people in that system, once they get in that system, it's hard to get out. And then the probation and stuff, that whole system's just crazy for real when I think about it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's different for real.
We're talking about the state of Louisiana.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Now, if you would have went to Mississippi State or Ole Miss,
What?
even their education system is even a little worse than Louisiana. So now we're looking at Arkansas, Louisiana. These are all the southern states. So as a black male growing up in those society, what are we looking at?
You gotta take it upon yourself. I think the biggest thing is you gotta dream outside of the picture that they gave us to see as a dream, and kind of believe in the man in the dream again. Sometimes we get so caught up in the environment of the dream that we leave the man behind. In today's society, you got to focus on the man, focus on yourself, and paint out the dream that you need to succeed. Because everybody can tell you what's right or wrong. But in today's world, it's like you get one chance. Got to take it.
So how do we get that message to those kids that are in Baton Rouge, that are in Shreveport, that are in Pine Bluff or Tupelo? How do we get that message to those kids? Or not only those kids, I think most important is how do we get that message to those parents that are in Tupelo, Mississippi, or in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, to try to get their kids exposure or try to break that whole paradigm?
You got to invest in your kids, man. I think the biggest thing is like there's not a dream too big or a dream too small. And whatever your kid want to be or trying to pursue, you got to kind of put that in the forefront of your mind and kind of be able to expose them to those things of that nature to light the dream up. That's the biggest thing, to inspire and light the dream up for them. I think they can take care of the rest. I think we had a conversation on the car earlier about this situation. Like, what do? You got to first identify who you're dealing with. So many times we want to tell somebody who they are before you identify who they are. So take time to listen, learn. See what they want to do, and then embrace that. Become a student of what they like. Don't become a student of what you like. Embrace what they like. Develop yourself in the skill that they like so that you actually help them.
I'm not paraphrasing in the sense that we as parents got to spend more time to identify and analyze our kids to understand exactly what the do's and don'ts, what their passions are, and try to invest into those passions and to give them the exposure that they need to excel within. Because I'm telling you right now, the system is set up. I'm going to say this right now. I love this country. I've been here for 30 plus years, and I'm going to say this very
Anytime
carefully.
you start like that, you know something bad about to come out.
I do love this country. The system is set up for us to fail. The system is set up for this is a fucked up system. The most difficult thing I feel in this whole world is to be a black male. Let me repeat this. One of the most difficult things to be in this world is a black male. The system is set up against you. They're afraid of you. Everything is set up against you, for lack of a better term. How do you survive this world where everything is really against you? You know what I'm saying? You have prison system that's geared to have you to be part of that system to get in jail. You know what I'm saying? You have the laws are pretty much predicated to get you caught up in this whole system. They're afraid of you. How do you get to the masses and say, hey, there is an alternate, there is another path? How do you do that?
That's a good question. The thing that comes to my mind is like, we have to put value back in the workers and not the tools. And when I say the tools, I talk about the degrees, I talk about the professions, I talk about the cars, the houses. Like, these are the tools that we really value, but we don't value the worker. So most people, they feel like you need this, that, or that to be seen or valued. If we put the value back in the kids and back in the people, I think we could flourish again. But it takes for us to get out of the keeping up with the Joneses, to get out of the rat race, to basically turn around. It's like we're going the wrong way.
I can tell you right now, when I start talking about turnaround, is important. And I think part of this whole podcast that we're doing, where you and I are having this conversation, we have the opportunity that many don't have the opportunity to have a conversation between a father and a son to discuss the opportunities, to see where we went wrong, and how do we progress going forward. Because again, when you look at, there's three more of Ferguson's coming after you. There's a Farah, there's an Ego 3, and now there's a Phoenix. So we have an opportunity to evaluate, analyze, and to adjust our whole thinking on how we are going to prepare a path for those three. I can tell you right now, personally, I never had that opportunity to sit back and evaluate, analyze, and to readjust. And that's why you and I, we spend a lot of time analyzing, adapting, to try to set a path for those three that's coming after us. Thought process.
Well, I agree with you right there. I definitely agree. I definitely think when you look at it, right, especially growing up with you, we were definitely in more of a survival mode. So everything we was doing, we was getting hit with it and having to deal with it as it came to us. I'm privileged enough to be able to use the experiences that we had to deal with early on to look at certain stuff that my son goes through right now. But okay, how can I help you improve or to develop at an earlier age? What can I do to give you tools to make yourself valuable? You know what I mean? And there's no blueprint to this. There's no guide to this. Like, you can't lead this, essentially. I can't tell him what he want to be. What I can do is just give you enough tools for whatever you decide to be, you can create it. And I think that's the world that we're going towards. What I'm loving about and new too is the creative world. Embracing the creativity of somebody, and embracing the things that we may can't see, the imagination, the designs, the being outside of the box. Everything that we did, you had a box that you can check. Either I want to be an athlete, check. A football player, check. A basketball player, check. It's all boxes. So in today's world, that you can be more than what we ever imagined. So being able to have grace for that and understanding that this is different for everybody.
But now here's the thing. Now let me contradict that right there. When we start talking about families that are still in the inner city, still in the hood, whatever the case may be, they don't have those opportunities to check those boxes. So the only box they have in front of them is athletics or entertainment or whatever the case may be. And so they launch into those paths right there. How do we reach out to those individuals to say, hey, you and I, we went through there. You know what I'm saying? We've been through that path right there. Let me tell you, hey, look out for this, look out for that. Be wary of that. What's your take on that?
I think what comes to my mind in those type of situations is to separate what you're trying to pursue versus who you are. You can pursue something, but it doesn't have to define who you are. So you may pursue a sport to get out of a better situation, or get out your situation. You may pursue something to further your situation, right? But it doesn't have to be the definition of who you are. And I think that's the biggest thing that I always kind of come back to, is valuing who you are. So regardless of if you're a football player or if you're a coach or if you're a scout or if you're a player development person, the value of who you are goes to the job. So if they take the badge or not, you still got to value who you are. When we put the value in the badge, the minute the badge goes, we have a lot of people that can't handle it no more or can't handle the other side of the equation. And so that's, I think, the biggest thing that I want to preach to kids these days. Like, if you value who you are, success is determined by how far you go, not by what you do.
When you start talking about, when you look, transitioning from Walkersville to St. John's, when we start talking about public versus private, I know when we went through that whole experience, it was when we look at it from a superficial standpoint, it was just a nuance of, hey, we're going from this school to that school right there. But that's a lot of adjustments for both you and me. Me personally, it was more of a financial adjustment.
Yes.
It was financial. Now I'm having to pay. I'm having to drive you to school. I have to pick you up from school. Yeah. There's more interactions with teachers. Where in Walkersville, The only time I interact with them when you piss inside of class or some bullshit or something like that.
That's like your favorite story.
So
but one thing that I didn't touch on that I like what you just said right there. When you went to high school, right, it was like you had to go to high school, right? Like you have to go. This is a box you check off. When you're paying for school, literally, you know in the back of your head, I need to get something out of this. I can't just go here and not get nothing out of this because you know what your parents, you do a great job of letting your kids know how much you're paying and what's going on. So you understand on the back of your head that I need to have something that come out of this situation, especially when you got like black athletes coming to a St. John's, like a Lenny Crawford or a Grandy Glaze. You're not just going there for a situation or a short time. You're going to get something out of the situation.
now you going into St. John's right now, coming from Walkersville, where Walkersville, you pretty much wear whatever you want to wear. You show up to school, they have a set curriculum for you. Now you're going to St. John's, where you got to wear these tight ass pants and these tight jackets. And you have to wear this tight jacket and all this. How was that experience? Now here's the thing. In Walkersville, there is the ratio of black to whites it's like a 70, 60, 40, somewhere around that area. Now at St. John's, you more of a 90-10 white versus black.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the numbers are small. So you think about it, Walkersville High School, I don't know the actual numbers, but I'm guessing probably over a couple thousand students. Maybe. Right. At St. John's, we may have 1,000, if that. You know what I mean? Like the level of class, the teacher ratio. I mean, the student teacher ratio was like crazy. 2 to 1. What do you think?
What do you think the studio is? In Walkersville, is it more of a 40 to 1 or 35 to 1?
I ain't even go to high school at Walkersville to tell you what was high school. But in middle school, it was like I could have anywhere in my class of 20, 25 people, maybe something like that.
25, 30.
Yeah, 25, 30, somewhere in that range.
And then St. John's,
we talking 10 to 15, maybe.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
And out of 10 to 15, how many blacks you have besides Queen Star?
Shout out to Queen Star, man. I hope she's doing good. What she got going on, but I don't know. That's hard because you think like
you may have what 2 or 3.
We was like polka dots. It wasn't too many. It was like probably 6, 7, maybe when I first got there.
6, 7 black students in the entire school?
Maybe 10.
So if you had 1,000 students.
They all was athletes, let's say that. All the black kids that I knew was athletes except like 2.
Oh, was Queen Star an athlete?
Yeah, she played softball and basketball.
Are you serious?
Shout out to Queen Star.
Shout out to Queen Star. So hold up. Every black person at St. John's was an athlete?
Basically. You may have 1 or 2 that wasn't an athlete. But for the majority of the part, black people I've seen, we were playing basketball, football, some form of soccer, something like that. It was
really?
Purpose on them being there.
Now that shit is that I was unaware of that.
Yeah, it's definitely different.
So if you had 1,000 students at St. John's, let's say 100 of them were. 100 is a lot. That's not 100.
You threw a number out there.
That's a lot.
Maybe.
I'm gonna say about 50, if that. No.
Yeah, I about to say that's a lot still too.
Say about 30.
Everybody somewhere between 30, 40 type of thing.
30, 40, and all of those are athletes. How was that environment for you?
I hung with athletes. Kept it simple.
Hold up, now I talked to Jenny Ballinger. She's not black.
That's my girl. That's my girl.
So how is that coming from Walkersville? Now you're going into St. John's, and you had that small.
But even in Walkersville, what we had on the basketball, we had more black people in school. But like the basketball team and stuff like that, we only had like a couple of black people in the Walkersville basketball team. 3 or 4 maybe.
You had Rosa. So how was that whole scenario for you?
It was different at first. You kind of got to get used to. Just to the biggest thing it was different.
You coming from Mims.
Yeah, it was different.
So you come from Mims to Walkersville for 1 year. Now you're at St. John's, where it's even gets more minute.
he kept taking me further and further down the deep end. I see. It definitely was different though, but it just took some getting used to. You know what I mean? Like I said, a lot of them people, when you start to get used to the schools and stuff like that, they had a lot more access to stuff, a lot more access to money, a lot more access to outside activities, you know. So a lot of things, you know, I was like, damn, you can do like that, or you operate like that, or
When you say access, explain. Go further into more the access.
I get down in private school, man. Like them kids, man, they got money to do what they want to do. Like shit, motherfucker leaving the school and you know, listen, I don't know. When I think about it, man, it's just it's right in front of your face. So they have the ability to get into stuff. They have the ability to try things at an earlier age than we may have the ability to. I think that's the biggest way I can say it.
The whole process was to hopefully there are a lot of kids, there are a lot of parents, there are a lot of families that's going to get ready to go from a public to a private persona, and understanding the challenges that they're gonna get ready to encounter. How do you embrace these opportunities? How do you embrace these challenges? And how do you move forward from these challenges right there?
I think the biggest thing is just be open to new things, be open to new experiences, and staying true to who you are at the same time and understand what you're going there for. Don't bring that hoorah shit to no private school because it ain't gonna work.
It ain't gonna work?
It ain't gonna work, so leave it outside the door. I understand. Understand what you're there for. I think that's the biggest thing. If you can keep what you're there for in the front of your mind, then you can have success. A lot of people start drifting on the journey or on the path they're trying to go. You start drifting off that road. So the biggest thing is to kind of constantly remind yourself what road you're trying to get to and what you're trying to accomplish, and put all your energy towards that. Like I said, sometimes the situation outside of the environment is not going to be to what your standards you want it to be. But understand that if you can constantly make your dream your priority, then even goddamn rose can grow from a concrete.
That's real shit right there. And I want to encourage those of you who are watching this whole process right here to really seriously, during the comments, please watch the YouTube, please watch the Spotify and the Podgo, to leave a comment. And if you have a question or you have a concern, please leave a comment. So are you okay?
Please leave a comment.
Please leave a comment.
Please.
So you can leave a comment and we'll try to respond to this. Again, this whole podcast is not just for us to it's definitely for us to share our experience, but I also want this to be interactive. No, we're not live, but please leave a comment and then we will try our best to answer some of these questions, because again, this process doesn't change. NIL is here. The real world is here. So we want to hopefully be able to enlighten, to educate you guys through this whole entire process. And if we can be that light to shine on you guys, hey, that's what I'm here for right now. You know what I'm saying? Not about the views or the money. I really don't give two shits about that. It's more or less to hopefully educate and to enhance more of us who are getting ready to go through this process to succeed and to elevate in this whole process. What about you?
Same thing. Definitely pick up back. My whole thing, like I said in the beginning, hopefully me telling my story inspire the next person to tell their story, and we can be a part of history. That's all I'm trying to do.
That's what's up. So we look forward to you guys. This is, again, I'm proud to say this is season 2. We're looking forward. We have about 7 seasons. Trust me, we're not going nowhere. 7 seasons. We're season 2. So there's 7 more. So let's keep
this prison break, huh?
Let's keep going. Let's keep going. We want to have you guys a part of this whole journey, and we want to be a part of your guys' lives, and we want to be a part of your whole success and your whole journey. So please continue to support, subscribe, and to leave comments. Very important. I'm trying to get my son to leave more comments, but please do. And this is Ego versus Ego, season 2. Episode 1. Look forward to seeing you guys on episode 2. Thank you, guys.